I've got Robin Bloomberg here. She is, what's your official title?
I
Do
don't
you
know.
have
I'm
one?
sort of like a sales and service representative, I
Okay,
guess. I sometimes I get different titles. We make up titles too for fun, but
that works. That's
I'm like
nice.
vice president in charge of
Yeah, right.
Michigan and Northwest Ohio or
Yeah,
whatever.
there you go. Well,
I
you
don't know.
run the
I sell
Monroe
stuff and I
shop.
fix stuff
Yeah,
and take care of schools and teachers
there you
and
go.
students.
So,
I'll be both.
yes. So you run the Monroe shop, and the Monroe
I
shop is
do.
where you are
Baroque
right now.
Violin Shop is a big company that's located in Cincinnati, Ohio. It's a family-run business, but we branched out into Michigan about 20 years ago, and I handle all of the Michigan and Northwest Ohio customers.
Awesome. And so I
Yeah.
see shelves of instruments behind you. Are those for sale instruments or rental instruments?
Yes, I will give you the nickel tour here. These behind me are all for sale instruments. These are all violins,
Mm-hmm.
and you can see it goes up almost to the ceiling in
Yeah.
there. Then if I turn this way, there's shelves of violas. And if I turn this way, there's a bunch of for sale cellos, and there's a lot more of those over here. So basically, our shop here is, we're kind of a warehouse, but this front room, I've got a fancy rug and everything. See,
Mm-hmm.
there's a rug.
Beautiful.
That makes it more like a showroom.
Mm-hmm.
So if people want to come and try out instruments here, I've got a nice place for them to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You can sort of see around, and I've got some specific stuff I can show you too. It's like we have lots of different beautiful violins are so fun because they're unique.
Yes.
And
Oh, I
cellos,
love that
violas,
one.
all the string instruments, just because they're made out of wood, so they're like people. Everyone's different.
Right.
So you
That's
can
so
see, like
beautiful.
here, I'll zoom in if I can. There's like a burled back violin. See how the
Yeah.
wood is all kind of looks like wood tie dye,
Yeah.
and that's called a burl. And I've got there's lots of fancy stuff. So here's Beethoven. There he is.
Yes,
Hi.
Beethoven.
And then he's got his scroll. He says practice.
Wow. So that
See?
Beethoven that's on the back of it, is that part of the carved back or?
It is. It's called relief carving.
Okay.
It's like when they cut away and they leave like a design that's raised in the wood. So as
That's
you can
so
see,
cool.
he's like, that's all, yeah, it's all
Right.
raised.
It's all one
So it's
solid
called
piece.
a relief carving. And it's kind of a marketing tool, but a lot of violin makers, it used to be a really popular thing. And it doesn't necessarily make an instrument more valuable, but it does make it more interesting.
Sure.
This one has some cool, like, what the purfling is. It's the lines around the outside. Can you see the purfling here?
That's beautiful.
It's got all mother of pearl, and then the ribs have this, like, it's sort of like violin tattoos.
Yes. That's beautiful.
It's and they do that. They like scratch it and then leave an ink inlay and then varnish over it. And it was a popular technique, even Stradivarius. This is a copy of a Stradivarius violin that was, I think, if I remember correctly, it was a copy of the Strads that were owned by the Queen of Spain.
Oh.
She had a quartet of them. And then this is the burled one. Oh, there goes my phone in the background. First time the phone's rung in a day or more. See the burl?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So that's really
What kind
pretty.
of-
That's like when you see those big bumps on the side of trees. It's
Mhm.
made out of one of those. And it's all maple.
Maple.
And then you can put different jewelry on violins. Like this is a cool tailpiece. Let's see. Can you see it there?
Yeah.
See, it's got like a
Another carving.
musician on it.
Mhm.
Let's see, what else? So walking around the shop, there's just walls. It's a little combination of my house too, because I've got lots of pictures of students on the door and news articles, just different things that I've accumulated over the years. So then we have, this is kind of cool. I didn't show you this the other day. This is a cabinet in like bows.
Mhm.
Let's see.
Oh, that's
See?
neat.
It's like drawers full of bows.
Oh, that's my favorite part.
Let's see. There's the bows.
All the different
See?
bows. Yeah.
And it's just a big bow cabinet.
That's awesome.
My dad actually built that for me.
Oh, that's so cool. Your
Yeah.
dad's a woodworker?
Let's see. Then there's bows hanging here. There's bows hanging everywhere. All right. So bows. We'll walk over here to the middle. I have like a counter. And I pulled out some different bows to show you. I've got to figure out how to make the camera work. But, okay. Let's see. There it is. Okay. So bow frogs are kind of fun. Bows are fun. These are all Pernambuco bows. This one is there. There's
Beautiful.
an ivory frog, which is, of course, illegal now. It's old ivory. Can't use modern ivory. It's against the law.
Right.
This is like ebony trimmed in gold. Ooh,
beautiful.
Nice jewelry. This one is really pretty. This is tortoiseshell in gold. And these are expensive bows. Like this is like, if you just for an idea, like the one I'm holding in my hand right now is like a $4,000 bow.
Oh, it's so pretty.
And yeah, they can cost a lot more than that. So for shock value, anyway.
Right.
This is just, and then a lot of times like bow makers they just use fancy things, and it's kind of a marketing thing.
Right.
I mean, because people see this and they say, "Oh, that's a pretty bow.
Right.
I want that one." But they usually don't put like really good materials on junky sticks. So this one is horn, and see how it's got like a different shape to it?
Yeah.
Kind of fun.
That's a cello bow?
Pardon?
That's a cello bow?
No, those are violin bows. Here's
okay.
a cello bow though. This one's got a silver design in it.
Yeah, that one's
see?
pretty. Yeah.
And there's another one. This one is a buffalo horn frog.
That one's so unique. It's neat how it's like kind of...
No buffaloes were harmed in the making of that bow, though, by the way.
It's kind of like translucent. You can kind of see through it.
Yeah, it is. It is. And actually, I love that bow. It's a really... one of the really fun things about my job is, I get to play all these things and try them all.
Yeah.
And I used to be an orchestra teacher, so I do have some proficiency on all the stringed instruments. So... I'll get a new box of bows, and I'll be, oh, this is really fun. Or I'll have a box of violins show up, and, and I get to play them and check them out and get to know them a little. So, anyway, we're moving into the middle part of my shop, and this is kind of, oh, gosh, it's just a lot of storage and a lot of overflow. This is just sort of the middle room, and there's a lot of for sale cellos here. You can see there's a whole, there's a rack of them there. There's some more, see them all?
Yeah,
and then I've got for sale basses there. And those racks I pulled out of the trash at Adrian High School. They're great. They were getting rid of them. I was like, and I asked, and she said, they got all new ones for a remodel, and so I got racks. Okay, now we're moving back in here, and those of you who rent instruments, this is off-season full of rentals. You should see it in the summertime.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
But you think about it, I've got to have instruments in every size, so I need a lot. There's, full-size violins all the way down to sometimes 32nd size violins, and I've got to have 16-inch violas and 15-inch violas and 14-inch violas and so on. So we need a lot of room. There's a lot of that has to be stored.
Yeah.
And then these are like, for instance, bows everywhere. Here's rental bows.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of them. And then over here is where I do like repairs. And my repairs I don't do. I just I basically take care of the rentals and minor things. But it takes a lot of time because every time you as a student turn in a instrument because your bridge broke, or even when you scratch them up, somebody's got to take care of those because we don't want to give you an instrument that doesn't look nice. So it takes a lot of time. We spend a lot of time fixing things and taking care of things. And again, they're stringed instruments. They're tools. You use them, and they stuff happens. So let's see, what else? I showed you bows. I showed you some instruments. I showed you a panorama.
Woohoo!
Yes! Round and round and round she goes. So that's kind of the shop itself.
That's awesome.
Without like taking you in the bathroom and stuff.
We don't need
actually, no, my bathroom's really cool. I have instruments glued on the wall.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's really cool. They're all glued into the wall. It's like a wall full of instruments. It's really kind of fun.
They're upcycled.
But I'm not gonna take you back there.
Yeah, no.
Anyway, you have questions for me?
Yes, we do. So I know the answers to some of these questions because I've known you for a long time.
Yeah.
So Robin and I met this is like my 10th year teaching. So it was 10 years ago while I was student teaching with Val Palmieri in Wild Lake.
Mm-hmm.
And Val was like, you need to know this woman because she's a vendor, and she used to be an orchestra teacher. But you still teach.
I do. I wear a lot of different teaching hats. Right now, just privately, but I just up till a couple of years ago, I taught high school orchestra at a local Montessori school.
Oh,
at Meadow.
Right.
Meadow Montessori here.
Right.
But I taught in public schools in West Michigan, and I taught at independent schools in Columbus, Ohio, and
right.
I've done a bunch of worn a lot of different hats.
Yes, and you were there when you were very young, very, very young, at the beginning of MASTA, right? MASTA camp.
Yeah, 1983. Yeah, I was after my freshman year of college. I did MASTA. I started MASTA, and I did for 18 years. And I started a MASTA camp in Alaska.
That's awesome.
And we also founded the elementary camps in Ohio, based on the Michigan model.
That's cool.
So, yeah. So I was never involved in the administrative end of it by choice. I always I taught, but it was really fun, and it was a project and something that I just think is really important,
right,
and dear to my heart.
This was a story that I liked. How did you get into music? How did you become a musician?
Well, I took piano lessons when I was 5. I started taking piano lessons from this old nun, and anything you could imagine was probably true. But then when I was in 4th grade, I was sitting in my classroom in Miss Wilson's class, and this guy came around, and he was apparently the orchestra teacher, and he asked us. He's like, okay. He didn't even show us the instruments. He just said, whose mom can drive him to school? And my mom was a teacher at that school, so I raised my hand. I said, my mom can. And he goes, okay, you'll be our cello player. So I started playing cello. And then the school provided all the cellos. So my mom was like, okay, cool, this will be free. She didn't realize, how many cellos later in college degrees, etc. The cello ended up costing her quite a bit. But it was money well spent, and I started playing it, and I almost quit once, like after 6th grade. I turned it in, I was done. And granted,
we've all been there.
And so I turned it in, but the junior high orchestra teacher, she sort of like knew about me, that there was a cellist coming in the pipeline that had piano lessons. I guess that made me golden. So she came and talked to me, and she said, just give it 1 year. Come to the 7th grade building, give it 1 year. If you don't like it, you can quit, no questions asked. And I was sort of like, hey, all right, fine, whatever. And so I went, and I started taking private lessons in 7th grade and made all sorts of friends, and I knew that my friends would always be in my classes. Yeah. And I was sort of like, all right, this is kind of cool. So I stayed in orchestra all the way through, and then majored in music. Now, part of my music major thing was kind of funny, too. I started playing violin in high school. One of my friends dared me to play violin at solo ensemble. and how you always take your friends' instruments and you want to play them? Yeah. Well, I thought I was pretty at the violin. I thought I was hot stuff, and I was, and she's like, I dare you to go to solo ensemble on the violin. So I did. And I played the Ruger Concertante, and I got a 2, and 3rd position and everything. I was so proud of myself.
Good job.
But then I sort of had a jump on violin, and I was like, okay, well, maybe music education would be a really cool thing to do. Yeah. And so I did.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I went to University of Michigan. Sorry, Kayla.
No, yeah, go ahead.
Spartan fan.
Oh, no, it's okay.
Your master's at Michigan.
Yeah, my master's is from there.
Oh, okay. So you bleed blue too. And then I got my master's degree at Ohio State, which
that's
is a little
tough.
conflict of interest too. But
that's okay.
It's all right. I just can't lose at football.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. What's his name is gone from Ohio State now, so.
Yeah. Right.
That's as much as I know about football.
Well, I am not like a big sports fan. It's
okay.
But
yeah.
it is what it is.
Right. one student, I posted links like for each of the people I was going to be interviewing, and I said, hey, do some research and ask a question. And one student asked a really thoughtful question. And so I thought I would ask this. So the founder of the shop, which we've talked about, Paul Bartel, which we didn't go over that story, but he passed last year.
He passed, I think, August. Yeah.
Right. And so the student's question was, how has the shop been doing since Paul's passing? Since he was, a pillar of the Baroque violin shop.
Well, Paul was just a brilliant man and businessman, and he had cancer, so he knew for 5 years that, this was coming. So he has in the business 4 of his sons.
Oh wow!
Sons, and sons-in-laws are high up. They kind of run things.
It's a family business,
and they all have very defined jobs. So like Jeremy runs like all the shop operations, and Stephen is like financial guy. And then the wholesale business is really Jason's ball game, right? And it's he and Brad, run that business, and then a lot of the employees, it's a family business, and they treat you like family, and they treat you beautifully, and you want to be a part of it. So a lot of the employees have been there for a long time too, so it kind of made the transition very smooth. When Paul, you'll find this interesting, when Paul brought his sons into the business, one of his things was, you have to work for somebody else first before you come into our business. So both Jeremy and Jason worked for other businesses before they came and worked for Baroque. But it kind of gave them a really nice, and Stephen owned his own business, so it gave them all just sort of a really good business understanding. So we're in really good shape.
That's good.
You can never ever replace Paul Bartel. He was
a big personality.
He was, and he was an amazing person, and he knew so much about everything. He totally, he built this business from ground zero. He wasn't a wealthy person. He was a school teacher. He saw a need, and he was really good at working with his hands, at fixing things, and he had a really good eye for violins. So he had the ability to, recognize something that was good and buy it, and then you have to do or have the restorations done depending on what needed to be done, and turn a profit. So it turned into, he was teaching school and fixing instruments at night at his kitchen table, and then he eventually got to the point where he could open a shop. And and he used to tell stories about like the first shop, and he had an old harp that he had put in the window because it looked really cool. And you remember he had one gold mounted bow, and that was such a big deal then. And but this was like, I think it was 1974 was when Baroque shop when he started it.
Wow.
So it's been around for a long time, and it's grown. I've been with him for 20 years, and in the 20 years that I've worked for him, the business has grown just exponentially. It's really been wonderful. So we miss Paul a lot, but as a business, we're absolutely fine.
That's good.
Can't replace that person.
Well, as a family business, he kind of being the patriarch, it's nice to see that the family has taken the mantle and moved forward.
And his wife Jan is involved too. The boys run the day-to-day stuff, but Jan, she's been around to help. She went to Chicago with us for the Midwest, and it's good.
So
really good.
How did you transition from being a public school teacher to working in the private sector at the Baroque Violin Shop?
There's the story with everything. I never ever thought I'd be doing this. Sorry. I always saw myself as a teacher, or a performer. I freelanced a lot, but I was home with my raising my children, and I do have a daughter with some disabilities, so it made it kind of hard to go back to a school teaching job. And my husband's a restaurant manager, so he worked really weird hours. So I was pretty much at home and giving lessons and playing a gig here and there. And I got a phone call out of the blue. It's like, hey, Robin, this is Paul Bartel. Do you know who I am? And I was like, yeah, I do. Because I taught in Ohio for a long time. And I'm very familiar with Baroque Violin Shop. And he had a rep in Michigan that had about, a couple hundred customers. And that rep was moving on to some other things. And all of a sudden he had a couple hundred customers in Michigan and nobody to help take care of them. And being able to service customers was really important to him. So he approached me about being a rep, and I said, oh, no, I don't want a job. I've got plenty to do. But it did happen to be the summer before my kids started school. And he sort of said, well, it can be as big or as little a job as you want. And I was like, oh, I have a hard time doing things halfway.
Right.
But I talked to my husband, and he called back, and I said, okay. And so he just has taught. Paul was the kind of person who was always teaching. I mean, you couldn't have a conversation with him without learning something new. And so he put a lot of energy into helping me learn about stringed instruments and how to take care of them. And I was well connected in the teacher world, which helped as a salesperson. And yeah, it worked. We took off.
That's awesome.
And so I learned as I went, and I'm still learning stuff.
Yes.
But that's what keeps it interesting for me. I think whatever you do, you want to be in a position where you can learn new things, because otherwise it gets really boring.
Yes.
So that's the cool thing about being a teacher. I think that's what I love. One of the things I loved about teachers is there's every day is different.
Yeah.
Because you're always working with different people, and and me, I'm still working with people. I'm working with students. I'm just helping them in a different way.
Right. This was a good question. Do you guys make your instruments, like the ones that are all on the shelves behind you?
Actually, we do have a resident luthier, and his name is Joel Thompson, and he studied at the Chicago Violin Making School. You can go to violin making school just like you can go to college. It's a trade school where you learn to make violins. And he's an excellent maker, and he does make instruments, and he's a cellist. He's a wonderful cellist, but he also does our high-end repairs and restorations. He works in our Cincinnati shop. So he's there. He's a regular employee, and he's there. Most of the instruments you get, like your rental instruments, obviously, it takes a long time to make a violin, and we couldn't turn out that quantity and how, and there really aren't any American mass producers of instruments. There's a lot of fine American, makers who make, a few violins a year, but there's not like big companies. Right. So most of those instruments come from China right now. But we also, you also get them. Our for sale instruments come from all over the world. A lot of them are modern Chinese, just because right now the modern Chinese instruments are great, and you can get the most instrument for your money that way. And that's what everybody wants. Is we want the best sounding, best working, best playing violin we can get for the most reasonable price. Right. And so we do a lot of modern Chinese instruments. But again, they come from all over the world. I have instruments in my shop from Poland and Hungary and the United States and France and all over the place.
It used to be Germany, right? Germany and
like when I was in school, I mean, if you had like a Roth or a Frechner or those were terrific. Those were largely, like the Roths in particular, are machine-made instruments. Right. They have like duplicating machines, and they make them. The Chinese, what's kind of cool is they still make them by hand. They have enough labor force, that they can make. So you'll have like one person who's making the scrolls by hand, and that's all they do. They do beautiful scrolls, and they make scrolls. And you'll have another person that carves out the body, and so we can rent a violin that's totally handmade and hand varnished, for really reasonable prices. Right. And if you compare those in sound to like the old German instruments that were kind of state of the art when I was in school, there's just no comparison. The modern Chinese sound so much better. Now, granted, there are good. This is kind of important. good instruments and bad instruments made everywhere. I mean,
right.
there are a lot of amateur-made instruments in this country that are rotten. There are a lot of a lot of violins that unfortunately that you find on the internet that look like a bargain. They're not a bargain.
Those Stradivarius ones.
Yeah, the Stradivarius with a typewritten label made in Germany.
Right.
Or the Stradivarius, better yet, the Stradivarius made in China.
Right.
Yeah, no.
Those are copies.
So, you very much get what you pay for, and
right.
if you, not to mean that there are, you can't. It doesn't mean you can't find a good thing at an antique store or on eBay, but you really got to know what you're looking at.
Right.
Because if you don't, you can really get taken.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And people like the repair shops. Like if you came in to me with a blue violin, for example,
right?
I don't want to work on it because I could turn the peg and the peg could break off or something because that's the way they're made, and I don't want to be responsible for that.
Right. I tell my
really
students about those a lot. The painted ones.
Yeah, we don't want those to represent our businesses at all, and it's not just me. I'm speaking for violin shops everywhere.
Yeah, I tell my students that regularly. If you were to take this instrument to a shop, they will not work on it. So and
what if they charge you $100 for it?
Less than that.
Their cost is like $13. Okay.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's. I think I've seen on Amazon for $79.99. You get the instrument, the case, a bow, a tuner, a shoulder rest, a stand, and I'm like, okay. All of those things are included for the $80, and they're still making a profit. So how much do you think that instrument? And they're like,
red flag.
Right. And my favorite is when they come in, I got a new violin, but I need you to put it together for me.
Oh, gee, IKEA? Yeah, right.
Well, I had someone a couple years ago, they got it from online Guitar Center, and so I had to put the strings and the bridge on, and the strings weren't even real strings. They were just those steel the steel core.
Yeah, the guitar strings.
No winding.
And the bridge probably wasn't cut.
Nope.
Yeah, we get those. I have people bring those in all the time. I got this on the internet, and it's a blank bridge, and I'm like,
even the painted ones.
For the violin. All right. Well, a bridge is $65. Oh, that's what I paid for the whole violin. Exactly.
Yeah, or like the really cheap.
Let me show you our rental.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all of the questions I have for you. I will let you go.
Anything else? Call me back.
Yeah, I know we've all got lots of time on our hands.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Today. Yeah, I know, right? I haven't had time yet to practice for myself, but I'm hoping to get there. I've been playing for fun more than really practicing, but I got together with a pianist friend last night later, and we played some stuff, and I was like, I should work on this. Yeah. So it's feeling a little rusty. Yeah. Social distance. We were 6 feet apart. Yes. Yes. He was at the piano. Yeah. I was on the cello. We were across the room. Yeah. So, all right. Well, I am going to end it there. Thank you so much for your time, Robin. You're welcome. Thank you, Caitlin.